Wes Craven's original A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven had done a couple other things before this. The Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, a couple other things I'm sure. But this was the big mainstream type of hit that just propelled and made him stand out, saying this is an original, imaginative type of director who can bring something completely fresh, completely new to the whole genre and everything.
Do you think that that religious background gave you the reason to go into the dark cinema?
Just found out about this around 2 o'clock in the morning. I woke up early as possible to get my day started and get these Red Rage Rampage 2 reviews all edited and stuff, and I found out that Wes Craven passed away, and I felt so sad because I love a lot of his films. I love A Nightmare on Elm Street, I love Scream, The Hills Have Eyes, and I also love some of his lesser known films like Swamp Thing, Red Eye. I even found some enjoyment out of My Soul to Take.
Well, you know, it's funny because it was such a pervasive lifestyle, and the mind was manipulated so heavily by all the adults around you. There's no way that it didn't have some influence in some way. But there's lots of horror film directors that didn't have that background. So, I don't know. I think I just have this innate sort of dark humor.
Johnny, let's talk about Nightmare on Elm Street.
It was just a nightmare.
Ah!
Hey guys, my name is Mike and I'm with the YouTube channel We Watched a Movie, and my friend Jordan asked me to be a part of this video and I am honored.
We are talking about Wes Craven. Wes Craven is the director who made two of the biggest horror icons of all time. He is the maker of Freddy Krueger.
I'm LaurenLovesMovies, and I am making a video saying why Wes Craven was a great director and what he meant to me.
When you think of Wes Craven, the man, the myth, the legend, the horror icon, the person who revolutionized the horror genre in plenty of ways, it's just really fascinating to look back on his facet of work.
The news came that Wes Craven had passed. It probably was more disappointing and like sad than any other celebrity before it for me. It was a little bit of a punch to the stomach finding out that Wes Craven had passed. And I think my number one feeling was, damn it, he could have done a whole nother great thing. Like, I think he had something else still in him. And that's one of the saddest things about the whole thing, is that I think that he could have had another one in him. And Wes Craven's not the normal famous director, famous horror guy. He's special and he stands alone.
Obviously, Wes Craven is a creator of such iconic horror films and characters. Obviously, you know who I'm being. I really think he revolutionized this genre that I am a huge fan of. I love horror movies in general, and his especially just really made my life.
What did that, Lieutenant? I don't know. What's the coroner got to say?
Simply because there's nobody else out there. Nobody. As great as John Carpenter is, as great as all the other directors are, and they all have great movies. Some of them maybe have more great movies than Wes Craven does, sure. But the thing about Wes Craven is, he has two horror icons on the Mount Rushmore of horror. I mean, not just two of the greatest horror movies, I'm not saying that. I'm saying two of, like, when you think about horror, there's only a handful of slashers or specific characters that come to mind that are just really the face of horror. And Freddy Krueger is, I mean, he's near the, if he's not at the, he's arguably at the very, very top of that list. So you've got one icon of horror, and then you have Scream and Ghostface right up there too. He started two franchises that are cornerstones of horror.
Whatever you do, don't.
Now, Freddy Krueger is such a loved character. It's insane. He's marked up there with some of the highest rated villains of all time. He is just incredible. He's an incredible character. So much backstory to the character. He's so funny. He's so dark, and it's just that character that you guys love. And I guarantee it's not as out of all the horror movie slashers out there, Freddy Krueger has to be on at least number 1 or 2. He's such an iconic character, and Wes Craven, when he made that character, it was a Christmas sweater, a glove, and a fedora. That's all he had on a burn victim. Ingenious in how he used them in these stories of the go into your dreams and killing you. It's just genius. Directing, it's just genius, and it scared the hell out of the kids back in the 80s and still scares them today.
He created in the 80s one of the most incredibly horrific and popular horror icons of the 20th century and still 21st century, Freddy Krueger, the man who haunts and kills you in your dreams. The character, who was iconically played by Robert Englund, could not have been created without Wes Craven. And I remember the first time I saw those movies, I watched them in a weird order. I saw the first one, then I went to like New Nightmare, and then I watched Dream Warriors, and then I watched the 4th, the 5th, then I saw Freddy vs. Jason. I watched it in a weird way, but no matter what the order was for when I watched it, I was still highly engrossed in what I was watching, and also scared shitless. Freddy Krueger is one of those characters who has become so integrated into the horror genre that you could put him next to the likes of Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula, all these really incredibly memorable characters that people still dress up as and act like today in our world. Whenever it comes to Halloween time, Freddy Krueger is always prominent, and he always will be, and it's always thanks to Wes Craven. And how can you talk about Wes Craven without mentioning the Scream franchise? Save your opinion for everything else that came after the first one, but the original 1996 movie is a film that was one of the first horror movies to really make fun of and exploit the genre while also making a very thrilling movie at the same time, simultaneously. Ghostface is one of the most iconic Halloween costumes ever. All you gotta do is put on a black robe and a ghost face, like, mask, and that's all you gotta do. I remember doing that costume like 5 times, but whenever you go to a CVS or a store anywhere for Halloween, it's there. It's one of the first things you see. Even if you have not seen the movie, you know what that is. But not even just going into what has been influenced by the movie itself has really great characters, a great roster of actors. I know it's been over 15 years since the movie came out, but I don't want to spoil anything. Wes Craven, though, created a movie from beginning, middle, and end that surprises you constantly, makes you laugh consistently, but also teaches you a thing or two about the horror genre. Especially if you have seen many horror movies, it's fun to watch these characters, especially Jamie Kennedy's character, talk about all the things that have gone through the horror genre, that have become cliched and annoying, and how it needs to be a new step in a new direction for the genre. And this movie was a meta film that took the horror genre in a different direction and for the better, and definitely inspired many new meta movies to come after it. All in all, Wes Craven definitely left a very big glove print in the heart of Hollywood and in the horror genre, and he will never be forgotten for what he's contributed to movies. Rest in peace, Wes. Hope you're experiencing some awesome nightmares wherever you may be.
Let me tell you guys a story. A couple years ago, when I was doing a horror movie marathon, I had seen the original Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time in my life. I was really excited to see just what Wes Craven can create with this character, originally played by Robert Englund, and then the remake with Jackie Earle Haley. But either way, the original will always be the best. He really made all of these different characters come to life, and people enjoy watching these films. And it's really a shame that he ended up passing away and we don't get to see his creativity come to life. But hopefully it can be immortalized with these films, like Scream, like Nightmare on Elm Street, and many others. So I just really loved these films in general, and I will never stop watching them and just thinking about what went on into creating these movies, coming up with these storylines, and just really scaring the shit out of me and keeping me up at night a couple times, especially with just really scaring the shit out of me and keeping me up at night a couple times, especially with Freddy Krueger. You know, he will haunt you in your dreams, so I guess I'm not gonna be sleeping too well tonight, so he might come after you too. I'm watching you. I just really love his passion, and it really made me a fan of horror films, so I just get so excited. I'm not too scared. I try not to scare myself watching horror movies, but his horror movies are just so well done and so thought-provoking that I really feel immersed into these worlds that he creates, these scenarios that happen to the actors in his films. So it gets pretty terrifying to watch, but I still enjoy it nonetheless. I just really love him and miss him dearly, so Wes Craven, you're the bomb. Such a master of horror, so thank you for making these films just be a part of my life, and I will keep them in my heart. I guess that's all for now, so sweet dreams.
And you might say what you want to about Scream, but the thing is, Scream started its own genre alone, and it really brought horror back from the doldrums. You know, horror was shit when Scream came out. Nobody wanted to make a horror movie. One of my favorite things about him is watching the special features on like Never Sleep Again or the Scream documentary. He just seems like a regular down-to-earth guy. He's not just like, I'm this fantastic man and I've got these great ideas that you little plebeians wouldn't understand. He's like a regular dude. I mean, he mentioned in one of the things that really struck me was he said, when he was talking about Scream, he's like, yeah, I hadn't had a hit in a while. You know, a bunch of my movies weren't doing very good when that came up, and I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to do it. And I'm thinking, not many horror guys would say that. You know, at the time, I thought, that's really cool of him. He's just a guy who makes horror movies, and some of them work, and some of them don't. He's not pretending to be some horror guru who knows all. Creating Freddy Krueger and that character, and the amazing story that he was cool enough to share with everybody behind that. Not only do we have that because of him, but we have the Scream movies because of him. We have Last House on the Left and all of his other movies to enjoy. Horror would, I mean, to say horror wouldn't be the same without Wes Craven around is an understatement of the year. I mean, horror would have a gigantic, gaping fucking hole in it. I don't know, can I curse on this channel, Jordan? I don't know. If I did, just bleep me out, maybe? Sorry for the extra edit, but yeah. It would have a giant effing hole in its heart without Wes Craven, and it's really sad that he passed, and he will definitely be missed.
And I love the fact that Mike brought the same thing, because I watched a ton of his interviews, and he is a laid-back guy. He's very sociable. You feel like you could sit down and have a conversation with him, not just about his movies, but just about life. And this guy came off to you as, this guy's just, he doesn't, it wasn't the fact that he thought he's big and high-mighty on the horror genre. He enjoyed directing the horror movies that he made, and that just right there is something that I full-on respect. Even if the movies weren't fantastic, or if they weren't, you know, what you wanted them to be, you still felt like he put his heart and soul into every movie he made so that you would be very entertained. And